Good afternoon, Wilsonville. It's a Wednesday. It's noon. This must be live at noon in Wilsonville. And we are so happy today to have one of our terrific members, Miss Laurie Barr from HR Solutions. She's coming to us today live in COVID land. Yes, if you're seeing this later, not only do we still are in the COVID-19 pandemic, but we even have smoke and lots of smoke. So it makes for a very interesting time. And in order to get started, everybody needs to understand that if you are watching this live right now, you are welcome to drop a comment in. And of course, later, the recording will post in a matter of a couple minutes after we're done here. And you are encouraged to leave a question or interact with Laurie Barr. So welcome, Laurie.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks for having me.
You bet. So one of the things we do here during this time is we like to start out with COVID is a little bit of a not normal situation for most businesses. So as you look at your clients, tell us a little bit about what's happening right now in COVID and how it's impacting businesses and what you do in HR.
Well, it's certainly been a very interesting time. So a large part of my expertise happens to be in the healthcare industry, and that's a lot of where my networks are. So as you can imagine, COVID hit the healthcare industry pretty hard.
Yeah.
And certainly the huge impact there, their focus has really been on patient care. So really in the initial stages, it was, preparing for the influx of possible COVID patients. And the focus really was on how do we keep patients safe? How do we keep staff safe?
Sure.
Obviously, as you know, there was a shortage of PPE in the beginning. So it was all about, how do you deal with that?
Mm-hmm.
Interestingly, while the focus on the industry was keeping staff and patients safe and dealing with the potential influx, there was also this huge drop in elective procedures. And so that hit the business pretty hard, and a reluctance for patients to be coming to receive care when perhaps they even needed to receive care. So, that's an interesting dichotomy for an industry to deal with when they're used to patients coming to the ED and suddenly they didn't want to be in the emergency room because they were scared, understandably so.
Well, and candidly, so most of your work up till now has been healthcare, but I know when you and I chatted, your practice also includes other businesses. And so when you think about that HR solution and for businesses who they may be in retail and their customers are not comfortable coming in, that's the type of service that Barr HR Solutions can offer. It's not just about the normal what we think about as HR hiring and firing of people, right?
Absolutely. So if you think about COVID hitting retail or grocery industry, they had major pivots that they had to make in their industries as well. Restaurants, for example, suddenly they were doing takeout only, and they were having to make major changes in their business models, which makes for massive change to how their employees are operating. And so what you have is a theme here in how do you manage differently? How do you help your employees adapt to change and rapid change, and often deal with not having the answers right away too. And so, owners of businesses, leaders are dealing with a situation where there's a lot of ambiguity and they don't always have the answers, and they need to understand that that's okay. And how do they operate in that environment in a way that continues to engage their staff and, helps their staff understand that, things are going to be okay.
Well, and you mentioned rapid change and you mentioned ambiguity, and I had a thing come across my news feed this morning about, again, another incident caught on video where somebody just lost it as a customer and physically starts, pounding on the poor employee. And, that's not part of customer service training. We're used to dealing with upset people, but people are so stressed out that, for that business owner, they're seeing things that, and their employees are seeing things that they've never, ever seen before. So, when you, it's hard to anticipate all the changes that are happening, and I hear from a lot of business owners where it's just like an overwhelm. So what can HR Solutions and a great consultant like yourself do to help, with that rapid change? Do you work with the owner, or you develop something? What do you do?
Yeah, absolutely. I can help on those things. One of the things that I'm really focusing on is a lot about leadership development.
Okay.
And how do we help leaders be prepared for dealing with situations like that? And it does start with leadership development. And so, if businesses are struggling because they don't know what to do, they simply can, give me a call, and I can help them figure out what's the best way for us to approach the situation. They don't have to engage me, for example, for a whole year. It could be certainly on a project basis, or we could brainstorm about what their needs are. They just need to, give me a call or send me an email. I have a monthly blog that I do a different article on, depending on what the subject is. And 2 months ago, I wrote an article about resilience, because that's something that I think is really relevant right now in COVID times, is how do we be resilient as leaders? How do we help our staff be resilient? What are the characteristics that it takes to be resilient in these kinds of times? And so how do we, for example, help leaders develop those skills to be resilient? It's just an example of the kind of thing that I might help a business do.
Wonderful. And, I saw some of the great testimonials that are there on your website, and, anytime that you can allow an owner, a manager, the leadership team to feel more in control, not that they are controlling people, but they are actually feeling like, okay, we're moving forward, we're accomplishing what we want to do. It's got to be a very positive feeling for not only the client, but for you. I mean, that's really what you're doing, is giving them a sense that they can move forward and accomplish what they want to against overwhelming, craziness is going on right now.
Yeah, it's certainly challenging times, and it's, we can get through it. It's just a matter of how, and that's what partnering with people that have this kind of expertise can help do.
Great. So if folks want to get in contact, we have a phone, we have an email, and an awesome, great blog that you can subscribe to. Phone or email or any of the above, short of smoke signals, right? We're all sorry, it was a very bad pun, but I just couldn't resist. So you're here to help. It's a phone call, and it doesn't cost to make a phone call to kind of have a conversation about what next. And again, many of our businesses out there are struggling, not because they're not working hard, but because they've never experienced some. And whether they have an HR department, or that they want to augment, or get a second opinion, or they don't have an HR department because this all falls on their shoulders, it's a great reason to pick up the phone or drop an email to Laurie Barr at Barr HR Solutions. And we thank you very much for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
You betcha. Next week,